Hey guys, I know I'm in a towel, but sometimes you have like these thoughts or something resonates with you and you think, if I don't share this, I'm going to lose it, and it's pretty good. So I feel like this need to share it. So it's Thursday morning, and so you open your back office, you look in your back office, and maybe your back office is lit up like a Christmas tree with all of these red inactives, or maybe you look and you're like, dang, volume is just not as good as I had hoped. And as you're looking at all this, if you're like me, it's really easy to go into what I could have done, what I should have done, why can't they do this, why can't they do that, how is this possible? And you start creating these stories in your mind about what the situation should be versus what the reality of the situation is. And so, I've been doing this for 5 years now, and I have seen the highs, I've seen the lows in the business. And if you know much about the story I've been telling for the last 2 years, it's that last year I hit a low in my business in terms of volume, in terms of people just giving up. And then this year has been an increase, and recently it's been very much a plateau. And so as a leader, I really try to think about, okay, so what are the things, Katie, that you can be doing differently? And it just so happens that when I was at Summit, I heard about a book by one of my favorite authors because I adore her. I love how she shares. I love how she writes because it really makes me think. And it's Brené Brown. And she wrote The Gift of Imperfection, right? And the other book that she recently wrote that I'm reading right now is called Rising Strong. And she tells me this story about how she was getting ready to do this speaking engagement, and she was kind of bitter about it. She was kind of resentful about it because it was for, these people who basically kind of conned her into doing this speech for free. And by that, I mean that, they kind of guilted her into it a little bit, and she felt like this resentment because she felt the need to say yes when she really wanted to say no because it just really wasn't a priority for her. And so she goes to this speaking engagement, and right before she's there, they call her and they say, hey, Brené, you actually have to room with another speaker. That's what we do. We're on a really low budget. Not that you understand that. Like, they kind of made her feel kind of icky about it. So she was building up this resentment, right? So she does the speech. She has this terrible experience with the roommate, the other speaker that she's with. And at the end of it, she gets back on the airplane, and there is just this bitterness. Like, she is just annoyed, and she's at the airport, and she's looking around, and she's just annoyed with the people who are near her, and she's making up these stories about the people who are near her, and she just has this ick feeling. She gets home, and she turns to her husband, Steve, and she basically says to Steve, it was the worst experience ever. It was, terrible, and I shouldn't have wasted my time on it. And he's like, Brené, can I ask you a question? She's like, sure. So because she likes that kind of thing. She's a therapist. She gets it. And he's like, do you believe that people are just genuinely trying to do their best? And she was kind of taken aback by that question, and she just immediately said no. And as I'm reading this, I'm like, heck no. I can think of a million excuses that people give me all the time that show that they are not doing their best. They could so be doing better. And I'm thinking about it, and she just goes on, and she kind of like, she asks questions, right? It's her job. Like, as a researcher, it's her job. So she thought about the question a little bit more. And she was like, do you really think people are just genuinely trying to do their best? And she thought about it, and she researched it, and she went and she asked people, like, do you think people just do their best? Do you think people just do their best? Do you think? And the more she researched it, the more she realized that it's not up to her to decide if people are doing their best, but it is her choice to decide to assume that people are doing their best. And as I thought about this, and I thought about my business, and I thought about all the times I would make a list of excuses people give me about why their business isn't working, I started replacing it with the phrase, they're doing their best. They're doing their best. They're doing their best. And you know what it did? Can I tell you what it did? It allowed me to lift resentment. It allowed me to lift this idea of having to own somebody else's excuses. It allowed me to kind of take this pressure off of myself, because if I assume somebody else is doing their best, I can continue to do my best. And that means that I can continue to take ownership of the things that are in my control, instead of allowing those people who, maybe I'm viewing as excuse makers to no longer be excuse makers, but somebody who's just doing their best. And then I can match them where they are. I can match their effort. I can match exactly where they are at any given time. And the only controllable then that I have to take is I'm going to show up and do what my personal best is, whatever that might be. And in comparison, it's maybe not the same level as somebody else who is a top coach or a top coach in the organization, but it's my best. And I'm showing up and I'm doing my best and I'm showing other people what my best is. But I don't need to assume that somebody else's best should be my best. I shouldn't assume that just because my best is defined as doing X, Y, and Z, that is somebody else's. And that freedom of saying they're doing their best. And even if it feels like you're lying to yourself at first, even if it feels like it just isn't right to say that, like you feel like you're kind of like, oh, I'm so full of crap. That person is so not doing their best. You just keep saying it. And you say it over and over and over again. They're just doing their best. And when something feels icky or feels like it's not right, you just keep saying they're doing their best. They're doing their best. And then you can match what their best is. And no longer do you feel like I have to tolerate their excuses, because I just believe that's their best, always. And you just assume that. And on a Thursday morning when you're looking at your back office or you're looking at wherever you are, or you're looking at what you are or you aren't or whatever, and whatever story that you're making up about your current situation, start with the phrase instead of, why is it this way? Why aren't they doing this? Why isn't it looking like this? Why isn't it that? Say, I believe that everyone is just doing their best. And then you have the freedom to go do whatever it is that is your personal best. So I just thought I would take that away. And I'm telling you that if you do read this book, look at it from the perspective of it's going to be a longer read. It's going to be one that's going to hit you hard. It's going to hurt when you read it, and you can grow from it. And it's just a different kind of book. And if you're ready for it, and you're ready for some truth and you're ready for some vulnerability, this is a good book for you to read. So guys, I hope that helps. And I hope it helps you whenever you want to tolerate excuses, or you really want to just be mad or resentful about where you are or where you aren't, that you just instead switch the phrase like a light switch. They're doing their best. They're doing their best. Even if it feels like you don't believe it at first. Just keep saying it. All right, guys. See ya.